Hey, this is 6 Bolt and Von Doom's Lab. This is going to be kind of like a different video today, kind of more of a thought experiment. So, in the last week, after my daughter went to college, I was pretty much done and out. I slept for 2 or 3 days. But during that time, I kind of thought, what is the value of a default LG game file, right? And that's kind of a little weird thing to think about, but you kind of think about it, it's like, well, you can use it multiple ways. It's not constringent like the MameHooker INI game file, where those are very constrained, right? You can't, if you have like gun 1 as like the Reaper and gun 2 as an open fire, that's how it is, that's set. You can't change it to change the guns around. If you did, you had to modify the pattern game file, and then you have a totally different game file. Then you have two game files, right? Just to switch player 1 and player 2 with the light guns. So usually the MameHooker INI game files are very constrained, and it kind of goes back to why I made Hook of the Reaper. Right, everybody knows I couldn't. I got MameHooker working, but it only worked for one game. Then I found out it's like, okay, I make all these INI game files, and if I got another light gun, I would have to modify all the files again. And now I have like two Reapers and one other gun. So if I want to use a Reaper and the other one, now I have to change it, or just the other gun. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. It's like you can't even like switch up the guns or not. So that's kind of, and so I was like, I want to change this. So that's what kind of more the default LG came out of. Then also I can kind of see happening even with the drive builders. They're kind of even some of them changing, because I can tell some pretty much just who's using Hook of the Reaper, because usually it was very constrained. Like the drive would have three light guns, it supported, and it'll be like you have two Reapers you can use, but you can't mix or anything, or it's two open fires and two gun for IR kind of thing, right? You can't mix and match any of those. It's like you can use two Reapers and that's it. You can't use a Reaper and open fire. But now more drives, you see more. They don't care. You can mix and match all the light guns, and I'm like, oh yeah. It's like, okay, I can tell that one. And it's not like kind of a new thing. I know Retro Beast, Chris did it, kind of months ago, where you can hook in any light gun in any order, and it kind of works, and that's like really cool. And I was like, okay, so I can kind of start seeing that. It's like, okay, so if we have the permutations of all the different kind of orders of the light guns we can do, that'll probably be kind of easier, right? Because if you do that, and then you can also think it's like, oh, well, default LG can do, like every light gun has the three recoil methods, right? You have the recoil signal, the ammo value, and the recoil rumble to solenoid. So, those three methods are in there too, so which would separate the patterns more, because in the MameHooker INI game file, you can't use both the recoil signal and the ammo to do recoil. It would just double recoil. But you can set that up in default LG. Then you can put your priority of what you want. The Reapers do better with ammo value because you can hold the slide back and everything. But like I said, I just like, okay, let's just look at like different orders. And then that comes down to, okay, we got to know the games and kind of how many one player games are there, how many 2-player games, how many 3-player games, and 4-player games, and then how you do the combinations. And that's what I kind of did. I just wanted to run the math to figure out that count. So I'll bring this up. This is kind of, I just went through my spreadsheets pretty fast. So this is like not totally accurate, but good enough for what I wanted to do. So I looked at Demol Shooter, MAME, Supermodel, Dolphin, DuckStation, PC, SX2, and this is the House of the Dead 2 remake, right? So you got 1-player, 2-player, 3-player, 4-player. So there's 35 1-player games, 132 2-player, 3-player games, and 31 4-player. So currently right now at version 1.1.9, I have 10 light guns supported in Hook of the Reaper, which is pretty cool. So if you just look at 1-player games, it's going to be 10, right? You have 1-player game, you have 10 light guns, it's going to be 10. So on 2-player games, right, it's going to be 10 times 10 or 10 squared, because if you have if you start with player 1 as 1, then player 2 goes 1 through 10. Then player 1 goes to 2. Then it goes 1 through 10 on player 2. Then player 1 will be 3. So that's how you do 10 by 10. So then you get 100. Then for 3 players, it's the same thing. It would be 10 times 10 times 10, or 10 cubed, which will give you 1,000. Then you got to get to the big one, which is 4-player, which will give you 10,000 combinations just for one game, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. I was like, wow. So you add that up, and I know this is kind of like marketing. I'm not trying to say, oh my God, look at like 201 DefaultLG game files, convert to 326,000 MameHooker INI game files. I'm like, no, that's kind of like some marketing BS kind of thing. Especially when you look at, like, most of them come from the 4-player game, right? So you have 31, so you have 310,000 just coming from the 4-player games. But but in the end, that's how the math works out. But I know that's kind of like unreasonable to think about. There's how the math does, but then there's kind of like real life. So I'm not going to say, oh my God, 200 DefaultLG, It's kind of funny. But then I was like, okay, what if you just looked at 1-player, 2-player, and 3-player games? Then it was 16,550. Then let's just look at 1 and 2-player. Right, that's 13,550. And I was like, oh wow. But I wondered if you just did the full 201 times, what was it, 100? It would be 20,100. But now you can start seeing kind of why drive makers, when they had MameHooker INI game files, why they kind of have to limit so many things when they do games, right? Because if you have you can't have like 13,550 game files, right? You would go through them all and you say, okay, you're using this light gun, that light gun. And it'd be kind of crazy to like figure out how like everything like comes to what light gun kind of comes together. But it's kind of interesting. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And like I said, this is just permutations of different light guns for different players in the game. This doesn't have any of the recoil methods, doesn't have the reload methods, doesn't have all the display stuff, which would add, a lot more to this. But yeah, if you just look at 13,500 divided by 200, you get like 67. Then I was like, okay, but pretty soon I'll be adding the Sinden in the Xena's Bluetooth LE, right? So we'll go up to 12. Even though I have the Xena's serial port, to say for ease, just make it two separate things because I do have to connect to it different. One's through Bluetooth, one's through serial port. So it is totally kind of different things. And you can see it actually starts jumping up, right? You went from 326,000 to now 667,000 just by adding two light guns to the mix, going from 10 to 12, right? It pretty much doubled it. So you can see this is more of an exponential kind of problem or a power kind of growing. It's not like a slow linear growth. This is like fast growing kind of problem, especially when you have so many different kind of things adding into it. And I did the same thing. You have 12, then 12 times 12 is 144,728, then 20,736. So it's pretty crazy. Then if you come down to 1 and 2 kind of games, it's 19,428. Then it's like, okay, what if we do like 15 light guns? What do we do? Then it gets kind of start getting crazy. It's like 1.6 million, different permutations of all the things coming together. And again, it's mostly coming from like the 4 player. So the 4 player is just like 1.57 million. But still, you can see it's almost doubling, like just going up. And that's like 40,000 for, oh, that's 1, 2, and 3. But it's 30,000 different game files. But like I said, that's how you can see why the drive makers kind of constrain the light guns, because they would have so many game files to like move around and all that. But like I said, in Hook of the Reaper, if you're using the default LG side, it doesn't matter. You can play one game, switch them all up, and play the game again. And you can, like I said, even if you play, I know House of the Dead 4 has all the recoil methods, so everybody can use different recoil methods and all that, all from the kind of same pattern. And this is, like I said, I know I don't have the PC SX2 done yet, but I added that in, and that gives 201 game files. So that was, like I said, pretty interesting. It's just more a thought experiment. I'm not trying to do, like I said, marketing. I'm not trying to put down like MameHooker or MameHooker INI game files. It's just more just running the math and kind of seeing the numbers, and like I said, trying to keep the marketing out and trying to see, oh, this is kind of interesting how things work out. But I thought it was interesting, so I thought I would share. But thanks. Bye.